Take your fears and let them go. For the lovers and the broken hearted, take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful. Wanna feel like a light in a dark place, another color in a world of black and white. Wanna try to paint the world in a new way, left home with a dream in a suitcase. Work hard, play hard, we don't have to grow up. Hide and seek, promise me that we'll never grow up. Hey, yeah, we're just getting started. Take your fears and let them go. For the lovers and the broken hearted, take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful. Hey, yeah, we're just getting started. Take your fears and let them go. For the lovers and the broken hearted, take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful. Another mirror saying why so serious. Another one in a long line. Don't let growing up get between us. Gotta let a little color back into your eye. Work hard, play hard, we don't have to grow up. Hide and seek, promise me that we'll never grow up. Hey, yeah, we're just getting started. Take your fears and let them go. For the lovers and the broken hearted, take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful. Hey, yeah, we're just getting started. Take your fears and let them go. For the lovers and the broken hearted, take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful. Make the world a little colorful.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Sunday. My name is Katie Gideon, and I will be the on camera facilitator. I am dialing in from Edinburgh, Scotland. And I will say I am usually like the Saturday night vibe or like the early morning social vibes. So I got a little nervous doing a Sunday night social because I feel like that was like prime time. But I am so excited to be here, and I am super excited that Malika is joining me in the chat. I always enjoy hanging out with her. She was my bestie over in California when I lived there back in the day, it seems. But she's usually a Sunday staple, so we kind of swap spots. But we are so glad that you're here. We are so glad that you're going to set up your week 2 of August for the setup. And so I already see in the chat the names that I recognize of our returning socialers. You guys just absolutely make my day. Can't help but smile when I see that, because it's definitely like coming and hanging out with my awesome support team and family through the kind of journal that we work on. And then I was also seeing some new people. And welcome, it's exciting. If you want to share with the larger Silk and Sonder family in the chat, make sure it's set to everyone, but you can always chat with just myself and Malika if it's in hosts and panelists. And I will say it can get a little bit maybe overwhelming, just in a sense of like, it is a unique cadence when you kind of come to these socials, because you're gonna wanna work on your journal, you're gonna wanna be in the chat, you're gonna wanna look at the slides, you're gonna wanna listen to me, you're gonna wanna listen to the music, kind of all the things, but don't worry, you don't have to do it all. well. Maybe you just want to come in and take notes and get ideas and inspiration from the slides and work on your journal later. Maybe you just want to turn off the chat because you want to focus on your journal. Maybe I am too much energy for you right now, so you can mute me, you can mute the music. And as always, these are recorded, so you can always come back to them. So just take a big old deep breath. We're gonna go as we go, ask all the questions, send all the support, celebrate as we get ready for our week, but we are glad that you all are here exactly as you are, and we're gonna tackle this next week. So as always, be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Please respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. And while Malika and I have some information, we do not have specific information, especially about individual accounts. So we will redirect those customer care inquiries to our team at hello@silkandsonder.com. And then as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So we know that sometimes the weeks don't pan out exactly as we want, and they can be tricky and they can be tough, and we're just in one of those moods, or we got up on the wrong side of the bed, or we stubbed our toe and we're just in a mood. That is great. We embrace all of those big feelings and emotions, but sometimes it just means that maybe you need to set up some of those mental barriers and boundaries as we dive into this self-care, because at the end of the day, this shouldn't be triggering. You shouldn't be negative. You shouldn't be punishing yourself, because no one is creating these things. We just want you to spend this time to set aside for what you need in order to get this week off kind of in a good direction. So if you had a bad week, let's leave it in the past. Let's maybe pull some things that we can kind of learn from it, move forward, and start moving again for some of those goals, especially as we embrace the second week of August, and therefore still embracing this month's theme of freedom, which I do like the idea of freedom, but sometimes I feel like it kind of scares me a little bit. And the reason it kind of scares me a little bit is because so much of the things that I tell myself I'm doing outwardly, I am internally critiquing myself on them. And that's where you kind of come into the idea of, I like the idea of embracing and doing everything that I want to do. If I want to go see a cheesy musical, I go see a cheesy musical. If I want to go see a movie, I'm going to go see a movie. But then there's that kind of little voice in the back of my head that's going to kind of tell me like, oh, well, it's this, it's that, it's not good enough, you're too weird enough, it's a little too quirky, kind of all of those things. So I feel like I've had a tricky time wholly embracing the idea of freedom. But then I also realized that that may be kind of my approach in some areas, but then other ones I have absolutely decided that I have the freedom to choose kind of what I take and what I don't take in. One of my favorite responses when I was in the military was when someone would come to me, they'd be like, you have this problem. And it was like, well, let's slow down. Why don't you tell me what it is? And I will decide if I have a problem. So I feel like it's that kind of attitude of I'm going to decide what problems are things that I'm going to see as a problem, what are things that I can fix, what are things that are worth fixing, and kind of being able to just prioritize but organize that in the I'm not going to let this bother me, or actually this is what really I want to put my time and energy in. So the freedom to be able to make those kind of decisions I think is great. So that's kind of what I'm going to look to kind of embrace this week. I feel especially with especially around work, working from home got a little tougher. I feel like the freedom and the boundaries and the instant kind of acknowledgement or being able to be, able to get a hold of in that kind of instant realm becomes a little tricky. So it became one of those things that, that's kind of what I'm going to look at. But I would certainly love throw in the chat kind of maybe your initial thoughts, especially as we are now on like the second week of freedom. Because like I said, I feel like it's one of those kind of big lofty things that can mean a lot of things. But when you try to kind of narrow down, well, what do I need to do? It gets a little bit tough and confusing. But we are going to now kind of move forward through the rest of the social. So we're going to do week 2 of the Freedom Mind Map. We're going to do our Rosebud Thorn reflection, and then we're going to dive into those weekly setup pages. So if you have not attended one of our weekly socials before, the monthly mind map is something that is unique to the weekly setups. They are an opportunity for us to explore that month's theme in a little bit deeper context from each week. So this is not printed in your journal. So if you haven't already found a blank page, go ahead and find that blank page, because this is where I put that. A lot of people will use it at the end. And we're going to talk about 4 different weeks, so 4 different kind of deeper topics to dive into under that theme of freedom. And so we're going to think about how we can achieve a sense of freedom in these particular areas, but you can also remember what it felt like when you had that feeling of freedom in those particular areas. So it is kind of a way to look maybe aspirational or kind of goal oriented, or it's just an opportunity to kind of reflect on past or even present situations. And don't worry if you come late to these, we always include the previous weeks, but also at the same time, you don't have to play catch up if you miss those weeks. And you don't have to come up with the answers today. You don't have to come up with the answers right now. This is an opportunity to take this question and explore it throughout the week. So week 1, we discuss kind of personal freedom. And so week 2, we're going to discuss financial freedom, which when I saw this, I feel like it is a little bit, it's an interesting topic, because I feel like it's one of those that we just don't openly talk about. I feel like, Katie, you took the words right out of my mouth. It is one of those that I feel like it becomes that like aspirational thing. But I think it also is something that you can kind of look at in a couple different ways, which I'll share on the next slide. But when we're talking financial freedom, it can be imagine what your life would look like if you achieved complete financial independence. What changes would you make in your lifestyle, career, and your relationships? What steps can you take now to move closer to that vision? So that is kind of one way to look at it. And then a couple of the other kind of approaches I went down is you can obviously use the how can we achieve a sense of financial freedom. I feel like that becomes like almost like a token webinar that you can sit and listen to. That's why we have financial advisors. But the kind of one that I focused on a little bit more was the freedom to understand what works for you and how you can learn about making this work for your own life. So I'm currently working on my MBA right now. I have a technical background. I've always been a science background. I've never gotten into the like business side of things. So I'm taking an accounting class. And I didn't, I got asked, did you learn anything so far? I said, well, yeah, when you don't know anything about it, you learn in exponentially more than if you do. But it was more of that realization of, this is something I can learn. This is something I can figure out. This is something that I can tailor because those resources are available. So you can think kind of expand outside of the, yes, I know I need a budget. Yes, I know I need to follow a budget. Yes, I kind of go through the motions for that and I'm not very good at it. But I think it was then also identifying that, with these classes or these courses, I can get better. I think it becomes the other thing of like realizing that I've made career choices because it's what I want to do, the opportunities that I want to do, and I may not necessarily be financially compensated on that same thing, but that's a decision that I would wholeheartedly make and had the freedom to make that decision. So I kind of reflected on those things. A couple of other things that you can look at is, what does this freedom look like to you? What steps have you maybe taken to start? But I think another one that I think is important to maybe look at is, will this be something you can do, or will you need support? Is something stopping you from asking that support? And kind of finding that freedom to just discuss this more openly, I feel like is kind of that counterbalance to some of it. So as always, this also can be a bit tricky, so give yourself some grace, take a deep breath. Feel free to absolutely write freely in your journal. You can include in the chat as much or as little as you want, but would love to get your perspective on these and continue the conversation there. So I'm going to stop talking, let you all work on this, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I appreciate all of the just insight and thought, and I feel like we've kind of broken a little bit of the norm because we actually sat and had, the chat conversation about it for a little bit when it came to finances. And I feel like that just needs to kind of happen a little bit more often. But I think it's also realizing the trickiness of this kind of concept as it is, because there really is no right way or wrong way to answer this. It's not that definitive yes or no. This is very much a gray area, all based on perspective, all based on opportunity. All of those things I think is just, it becomes a lot of just different ways to approach it. And I think what it also kind of comes down for me, especially, is this is one of those areas that I don't have a lot of confidence in because I just feel like I'm not doing it right. And I think to me, there's nothing scarier than just not being able to understand and just not thinking it's on the right path, on the right track, or like I'm missing something or something else is like, it shouldn't be this hard. But I just have so much, feel thoughts and feelings toward it because it just isn't something that I consider. It doesn't necessarily come to me easy or naturally. And that just for me makes it a little trickier. But thank you, everybody, for sharing. Appreciate that. So hope to definitely continue to explore that idea this week. And certainly look forward to week 3 and week 4 ideas as well. So now please join us on page 36 in your August journal for the rosebud thorn exercise. This is also another one of those that can certainly have a big difference on like what type of week you had, but the freedom and the ability to sit and kind of reflect on the type of week that we had, to acknowledge that there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and there's going to be everything in between. And I always kind of tie this a little bit to the even monthly intentions with the start, stop, and continue. So this is almost like your ability to check in on a weekly basis on maybe things that you want to start, stop, and continue, or you can absolutely look at it completely independent. And so we'll start with the roses. So this is something that went well, something that was a highlight, something that was a win, something that made you smile, something that made you happy. The bud is an emerging opportunity, something that you're looking forward to, or something that is maybe out on the horizon and you haven't quite figured out if it can be a rose or a thorn or something in between, but it is certainly something you can kind of explore and maybe kind of pivot it into one of those lanes. And then the thorn is something that maybe didn't go as well, something that was a challenge, something that was a roadblock, a speed bump. But I also think of it, instead of always kind of dwelling on like the deeper, darker negative, which I love doing. I love that glutton for punishment of like, you did this wrong, and I'm going to continue to remind yourself at all times of the day and night. It can also be just something that is taking up too much time, energy, or space in your brain, and you can acknowledge it that way. So for me, my rose, I went to the Edinburgh Military Tattoo, which is an amazing concert done at the castle. They bring in a bunch of different military organizations from across the world. This theme was nautical because it was journeys. So I got to run into, the Citadel band again, the Navy Color Guard, as well as the Navy drill team and the Navy band. And those were always really fun and really enjoyable because for me, it's that perfect meld of music and artistry, but also the military precision that gets me all the feels. I get choked up every time. And then also my bud this week, I am a nail biter, and I have been, always will be, until I'm trying to, like, again, I go through these moments of trying to do better. So I bought some fun nail polish. So my nails are painted and they're actually longer than they've been in a while because I can actually put nail polish on it. So that's my bud, so that maybe if I keep nail polish on it, I won't bite them as much. Yes, win. And then the thorn for me this week, my skin has just not been cooperating. I've got blemishes that I haven't had in a while, so I'm just kind of frustrated with that. And certainly paranoid with it because I feel like I'm stuck in that position of I don't like to wear a ton of makeup, but I feel like I need to, just for it to all look the same and I can look like a little bit more myself. But that's just kind of the feels I'm in right now. So I would love to read about your rosebud thorns in the chat. loving to celebrate all of those roses, get excited about those buds, but also send some of that support for the thorns. And as always, I feel like if you have a hard time finding some of these, it can kind of tell you what kind of either mental or emotional state you're in. And maybe there are some changes you can make into the weekly setup to kind of identify, especially the roses, a little bit more. So we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I always appreciate the just elegant honesty that the rosebud thorn, I think, delivers, because it is definitely the way to look at the type of week that you had with those roses, and then the excitement for the potential, but then also acknowledging those thorns. So I also think there's something just comforting of being able to put some of these just like out into the universe, or even just out into the chat. There's almost that sense of relief because it is a way to kind of put those into kind of neutral territory, but also knowing that everyone here is certainly coming from a supportive and celebratory side. And so I feel like there's always that kind of just reassurance, and that's also one thing that I think is really special about these socials. But so now that we've been able to take that opportunity for a rosebud thorn, if you have some of that momentum, let's carry it into the week, next week. If you didn't have a great week, then let's leave it behind. We'll kind of stop that momentum and pick up some different one. And so now we're going to move into page 40 and 41 in your August journal. And this is one of those that I always say that you can absolutely do everything as written in the journal. You can connect the different pages or the different sections, or you can keep them completely independent, or you can just repurpose anything and everything. And those repurposing can be, changing words, modifying it, only doing, sections of it. But it also means that you can leave some of those sections blank. So sometimes when I get a little lost, even kind of in just the overwhelming setup of trying to set up the perfect week, I always have to remind myself that the perfect week doesn't exist. We are trying to break away from the perfection as well as those expectations around it. So I always give myself that reminder. And sometimes I also then just come back to ground myself with the what do I need this week? And the way I piece those things together is I start at the top of the page, so this is top of page 40, and ask myself, how do I want to feel this time next week? It is a way for me to kind of take ownership and take control of my week, because as I am experiencing those roses and the buds and the thorns of the week, I can always come back to this kind of grounded idea that I had control over. And so when I ask myself how I want to feel this time next week, obviously that can be a specific word. It can be your word of the year. It can be the same word you used last week. Maybe it's more of I want to feel 1% better. Maybe it's more of I want to feel less this and more this. Maybe it's a combination of words. Maybe it's a phrase. Maybe it's an affirmation. Maybe you need to feel a different word each day because you have to have a different attitude for each day. Another one is we also have amazing stickers out there. Stickers are meant to be used. Their destiny is to show up on a piece of paper and provide some sort of excitement, enjoyment, all those things. So if you're a sticker hoarder, pull those out, use those. And sometimes it isn't quite a word or a phrase, or you just don't know what to call it. So it's more of like, I just want to feel as happy as that little manatee with a flower crown. I don't know what word that is, but that's the attitude I'm going for. I want to be as calm and collected as that manatee and its little flower crown. So I'm going to turn a quick little song on and just put into the chat if you want how you want to feel this time next week. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Please feel free to continue to throw those intentional, optimistic, how you want to feel this time next week words into the chat. But we are still on page 40, but we're going to move to that next section. And as always, as I go through these slides, I will always go back to them once I go off camera and turn on the music. And you can continue to work at whatever pace you're on. This is your time. And same thing with if you need to go back to a slide, just let us know in the chat and we'll make it work. So for me, now that we've established, how we want to feel this time next week, that's kind of our grounding goal. That's going to take us to even keel as we experience all of the highs and the lows and everything in between of the week. So now we then include those weekly major 3 goals, or it could be the weekly minor 3 goals. It could be 2 goals. It could be 1 goals. It could be no goals. And so sometimes the way that folks approach this is they will categorize these goals. For myself in particular, these are the mental or emotional reminders that I want to give myself each week, as just kind of the as I get a little lost or I get a little frustrated or I just need help with some prioritization, these are those grounding reminders that I go to. And again, those can be incorporated with stickers. Those could tie directly into how you want to feel this time next week. Someone wanted to have a calm, creative, and calm, centered, and creative feelings this time at the end of next week, which then translated into the calm mind, strong and centered body, and creative spirit. Then, as I said, we have the categorization types. So maybe you want to have a professional goal, a mind goal, a body goal, maybe a mind, body, soul goal. We also love the alliterations of, you can maybe have a productive goal, peaceful goal, powerful, frog, fun, fierce. There is also a let go, lean into, and learn. Some of the other ones that these can tie directly into your to-do list. So your 3 major categories will have associated to-dos that support those goals directly. You'll hear the commonality of bingo boards. We love a good bingo board, and that's more just because of the gamification of some of these things. So maybe some of your goals can be incorporated into a bingo board here. But maybe these are also things that you want to stop doing. So maybe these are kind of the no goals or the anti goals. Stop negative talk, stop mindless scrolling, stop eating out. Or it's more of the, kind of, as I said, more of the general reminders. So have fun, be kind, work hard. Or maybe you want to just repurpose this section because it has the lines graphs. So maybe that just works a little bit better. So I would love to hear, are you a categories person? Are you a just here are the top 3 things I need to do? Do you throw in those stickers? And we would certainly love to hear what kind of goals you're going to be working on this week in the chat if you want to share, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I loved the inclusion of the theme. And that is always another way that as you get a little lost and kind of coming up with these ideas, you can always return to the theme as a way to either ground it or even give you inspiration. So the fact that you could then bring in those potential categories, if you're a categories person, and then ground them in the freedom to support your body, freedom to support your mind, freedom to support your soul. We get to kind of dictate and play with these type of things. So I really liked that perspective in the chat. So we are still on page 40. And again, you can tie your main 3 goals together with your weekly to-dos, or you can keep them as separate sections. And so you can approach this as definitely a traditional to-do list, or you can do a to-do list. I am a fan of the to-do list because I like the little mini celebration that I can have, because I certainly strive on that type of achievement. But there are times where I have just way too many random things on my to-do list, or I have too many things that I carry over from week to week. And that's usually when I need some help with prioritization. And so some of those other techniques that you can then include is the Eisenhower matrix, which is that do, decide, delegate, or delete. As someone who does live alone, the delegation I have had to just wholeheartedly embrace a bit more. And then I never delete anything, I usually just delay it. So you can still play with that alliteration. And just because those are the categories that are there, sometimes you just need to recategorize what your to-do list looks like to change perspective, but also help you kind of figure out a way to tackle it. You can also carry over, again, those categories with the self, home, work, or mind, body, soul. The Pomodoro method is a really great way to tackle some of those larger tasks that maybe have smaller pieces associated with it. And then you can always do the ta-da bingo. The original artist for Fireflies is Owl City. And then sometimes it's also the just like different perspective of categorization. So sometimes that you can reorganize your to-do list and break it down with calls, errands, follow up, or schedule. I also really appreciate the need, want, and hope, or the need and want as kind of those different perspectives to do that. I also like the idea of, hey, don't do this instead. Especially if you catch yourself kind of, spending a little of that unnecessary time on your phone, or a little bit too much time. Maybe it's shifting to other things. I feel like I've had a little bit of that perspective with some of my to-do lists, because I definitely have some downtime and I'll grab my phone and then I'll remind myself to put it down and let's read a book, kind of embracing all of those hobbies. But also maybe it's the place that if you had a tricky time finding those roses, maybe this is where you track those happy thoughts. Maybe this is more of a to-be list instead of a to-do list. I feel like sometimes it's just that added pressure of a to-be. So maybe you just need a week where you focus on the being instead of the doing. So I thought this was a really nice kind of iconography associated with that, because there are definitely weeks where I just feel a little worn down because I focus too much on the doing and not on the relaxing or resting or resetting. So would certainly like to hear, how do you tackle your to-do list? Or are you going to kind of switch it up? Because for me, this particular section changes from week to week based on the type of week that I think I'm going to have, or that I know I'm going to have, because we all know that those week looks different. So for me, this absolutely changes. And I found that it really changes for the benefit, but sometimes it takes me falling on my face a little bit to figure out that I need to do a change. And that's okay. So we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I appreciate all of definitely the examples around the different techniques, be it the Eisenhower matrix, the Pomodoro, the to-do list, but also the acknowledgement of sometimes adjustments just need to happen. And that's where I feel like a lot of people can certainly get tripped up on the to-do list and certainly, hold themselves far more highly accountable for it, which can be a little bit on the negative, potentially triggering side. But being able to start anew each week or try something new each week, I feel like it becomes that I feel like I have even been a lot kinder to myself in this particular area because I've been able to kind of just open the perspective of, okay, well, this didn't work. Let's try something a little bit different. And realizing that sometimes it's just a change in perspective, a change in approach. Even though I didn't change what was on the list, I just changed how I approached it, and I'm finding a little bit more satisfaction, but also just the overall goal of being kinder to myself. So we are still on page 40. Now we're at the bottom of the page with those habits and activities, or as Maya, one of our other facilitators, has coined it, the habities. And so this is another one of those that you can go hand in hand with the monthly habit and activity tracker and the weekly. You can pull from those monthly ones. The way I approach that is those are the monthlies are the things that I want to do every single day. But when I bring them to the weekly page, that is where I add the lens of reality, which is how much will you be able to realistically accomplish based on your to-do list, your weekly goals, and just, the other things that life I know has in store for that week. And then just because there are goals listed does not mean that you need to list those goals. But some of those approaches, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is really successful, especially if you're wanting to either hone in on specific things. I also have been in socials where people use this as a way to try out new habits and activities before they get graduated to the monthly tracker. And maybe these are also things that are a little less of again, the doing and more of that kind of being philosophy. So maybe these are just the reminders to be kind, accept yourself, get enough sleep, get outside. I am a big fan of slapping stickers on this section, especially if I have friends or family visiting or holidays, or I just need a vacation or a break or something like that. And just because there are 5 things doesn't mean you need to have 5 things. Maybe you just have 3, maybe you have 2. Maybe you're recovering from an illness or you're on that kind of health journey, and so it's just to get better, feel better. You have those abilities. I also like the format where you can look at your weekdays and the traditional weekends slightly differently. So it's all about kind of managing and controlling some of those expectations. And then, as always, I love to include something fun, and I am a big sucker for the imagery that a lot of these are on. At Positively Presence is an Instagram account that I follow. I have found myself drifting a little bit more into those in the social media to get just a little bit of happy, motivational. So, as always, I always encourage you to include maybe something from these lists to break it up or do something a little bit fun. As always, a great way to do that. So I will give you some time and let us know what habities you are working on, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I loved seeing all the different approaches that you have to your habits and activities. But I also think this is a good place to kind of remind yourself, especially it's been a really good tool that a lot of our other facilitators use, is you can use it to kind of check in with your journal as well. So maybe it's a review your reflections page or review your intentions page or work on a journal prompt page as a way to kind of continue to connect and keep you progressing across the entire journal. It's another one of those tools that you can add to your tool belt. So now we're going to switch over to page 41. And I preface this with this to me is the B side. I absolutely complete the first page very diligently. I refer to this next page as the B side because it's the B side of a record, which has some amazing gems when you want to listen to them, but you don't always listen to it. So I don't always use these sections for this page. And that took me a little bit to get to a point where I was okay with that. But when I do find them and repurpose them, it becomes really magical. But I would say I don't always use this page as much as I think a lot of other people do. And that's just not what I need, and that's not the use that I have for it. But with that saying, you can absolutely use the meal planner as a meal planner. You can use it to track kind of real time meal intake if you're on that type of healthcare journey. This is a great place to track those one good things, especially if you had a little bit of a trickier time finding those roses, or you're going to have a type of week where you're just going to be in one of those funks, and it'll be a good way to kind of come back and revisit and realize that you dwell on like the bigger negative things, but really you probably had a lot more positive things. It can also be a way to embrace the theme. So looking into kind of freedom, how did you give yourself freedom? How did you do that the day as a way to kind of focus more in on the meal plan for the soul or the journaling technique? It can also be a list of priorities or a health tracker, a great place to put those affirmations. You can also embrace a word of the day. You can either use that to reflect either at the beginning of the day to kind of help manifest the type of day that you're going to have, or you can use it to kind of summarize the day that you had. I have used it as a packing tracker when I've traveled either for work or vacation, just so I can pack a little bit smarter. Or maybe it's where you want to find again how did you find your happy that day? This can also be a place where you can be creative, especially if you write haikus every day. The Mind Body Health Plan is another one of those that can get repurposed. This can be, again, an embracing of the theme. It can be your highlight of the day. It can be a quote. It can be that reminder to unplug for however amount of time. And these are going to be the steps you're going to do. You can embrace the alliteration of it. And I saw that Nathania's there. I always love her I feel I need example at the bottom left. She does it at the beginning of the day to feel like what she needs. How she's feeling and what she needs. I just think it's such a great way to kind of look at that perspective, and you can do it at the beginning or the end of your day, because we feel like we always kind of do the like, this is what I'm feeling, this is how I can kind of recharge or relax or refresh. The other thing is that maybe this is where your reading log is, or a chore log, or a ritual or routine. You can turn this into another bucket list, or you can throw a sticker on it. The shopping list is also there. A lot of folks will use this for their bingo boards, and I feel like you can turn any theme into the bingo board. So it's celebrate the wins, the just for fun. I know if you've got a birthday coming up, you can turn it into a birthday bingo, or it can be a boring stuff bingo, self-care reminders, daily rituals, or it can be used as a shopping list to help support that meal plan that you created. It can be a social check-in, maybe a buy and don't buy, especially when we're talking the financial freedom for this week. So it can certainly be, a plug for a budget. So I'll give you a chance to kind of work on this page. Let us know if you repurpose these sections or use them as listed, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And then the very, very last part of page 41 is that I am loving. And that is an opportunity to just acknowledge something that makes you happy, something that you're loving. I have actually been tracking my Spotify day list recommendations, and I love the identity it has now given me. I now wholly embrace the coastal cowgirl philosophy, as well as the emo cookouts that I guess occasionally my playlists inspire. And my new favorite word is y'all alternative, which again, I feel like it's that great meld of my emo alternative taste and my country roots. So I have been really loving that. And then I also recommend the Currently page, which is on page 39. I like to use this as, again, a fun way to tell myself the story of the month. So I start at the beginning, the middle, and the end of each month and answer kind of all of these questions: what I'm loving, what I'm feeling, what I'm enjoying, what I'm anticipating, what I'm wishing, reading, watching, and planning. And like I said, for me, it's a really great story of what my month looked like. So I highly recommend at least attempting this one. And then, as always, we have reached the end. We would love to continue the conversation in the app. You guys provide such amazing inspiration for all of these, and I certainly enjoy it. These are the different QR codes. The links aren't quite working in some of the updated Zoom, with the updates to Zoom that's made, and you'll see those in the email follow-up that you'll get. And as always, here is my playlist. I will also link it into the chat, and Malika is putting some of those links in there as well. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. It was so wonderful spending this hour with each and every one of you. I know you guys are going to have an amazing rest of the week, and I hope to see you at a future event. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.
You take off your shoes and you're twirling around in the long grass. High in the hills, I watch you melt into the sunset. You're warm like the summer, you're bright like the sky. You're all of the things that I need in my life. Dance like nobody's watching. Laugh like our hearts are free. Sing like nothing else matters. 'Cause I'm alive with you and you're alive with me. 'Cause I'm alive with you and you're alive with me. Memories of empty pursuits, searching for meaning. A man in a mask who never knew what he was feeling. You showed me the summer, you showed me the sky. You showed me the things I could have in my life. Dance like nobody's watching. Laugh like our hearts are free. Sing like nothing